All right, picture this, a localized epidemic of terror. A remote village completely paralyzed. Today, we're opening a chilling case file of village folklore to break down the haunting patterns of the bhairavpur Haveli. We're going to uncover how a simple dare completely unraveled into a century-old supernatural mystery.
Impossible to escape the footsteps. This terrifying phrase, whispered in the dark, really sets the stage for what we're about to unpack together. You see, this wasn't just a rumor spreading around town. It was a physical, auditory warning echoing through the empty streets of bhairavpur. And honestly, the psychological impact of an entire community sharing the exact same hallucination or, encountering something very real is what makes this explainer so deeply fascinating. So let's jump right into part one, the curse of bhairavpur. Okay, so every major event has a ground zero, right? And for bhairavpur, it was this ruined, abandoned haveli on the outskirts of town. Now, locals knew to avoid it. They sensed something deeply wrong within its crumbling walls. But as these things usually go, it only took one person to wake whatever was sleeping inside. We've all heard bumps in the night, but this entire phenomenon revolves around the concept of ahat. It all started when a young woman named Rina took a dare to enter those ruins. But ahat here isn't just your generic spooky noise. It became a highly specific, undeniable signature of an approaching unseen terror that literally stalked its victims. That single moment of terror inside the Haveli, that was the spark that ignited a village-wide epidemic. Rina didn't see a monster jumping out at her. She saw a sheer violation of natural physics. Her flashlight cast her own shadow, sure, but another shadow was moving completely independently alongside hers. And right after that mind-bending visual anomaly, she heard the ahat, the creeping footsteps coming closer. She ran, obviously, but the haunting followed her right home, manifesting as footsteps in her bedroom and blurred figures in her mirror. Which brings us to part two, the Haveli's many victims. As the fears spread, it was honestly as if opening the door to the Haveli released a virus of fear that mutated depending on who it infected. The haunting was sheer chaos. We're talking 4 different victims in 4 completely different locations experiencing 4 distinct visual phenomena. You've got Raghu the barber, driven to absolute madness by a white figure with glowing green eyes near the village pond. Then there's Anirudh, a totally rational schoolteacher, hearing heavy boots and a whisper telling him he can't escape. And Amr the bus driver. He's completely alone on his route, and suddenly he sees a faceless man sitting in the back seat. It's like the entity was customizing its terror for each specific victim. But wait, here is the truly chilling thread tying this all together. Regardless of what horrifying vision they saw, they were all linked by the exact same sound, those creeping footsteps. For instance, housewife Savita's courtyard lamp was blown out right before a woman in a black sari whispered in her ear. Priest Mohan tried to cleanse the area with mantras, only to literally watch bloody text appear on the wall. The visuals changed wildly from person to person, but the ahat, the heavy, approaching footsteps, were the constant, undeniable warning preceding every single attack. So, this terrifying pattern logically points back to ground zero, leading us to ask the ultimate question driving our whole investigation here. If the Haveli is the source of this spreading contagion of fear, what exactly is buried within its walls? To find out, the village desperately needed someone who wouldn't just run away at the first sign of a shadow. And that kicks off part 3, the investigation begins. Enter DCP Arvind. He's a strictly rational police officer dispatched to investigate the panic. Arvind walked into the ruins armed with nothing but a flashlight and a lifetime of logic, fully expecting to arrest some local prankster. But when an invisible, heavy hand grips your shoulder and a disembodied voice directly instructs you to go down into the basement, well, even the fiercest skeptic has to adapt. You can't exactly put handcuffs on a shadow, right? The entity wasn't just scaring him anymore, it was actively guiding him. Leading us to part 4, Truth of the Basement. Teaming up with Rina and Anirudh, Arvind realizes that just avoiding the dark isn't working anymore. If the ahat is hunting them out in the open, they have to take the fight directly to the heart of the Haveli. I want you to imagine the atmosphere as they descend. It is pitch black, their flashlights are barely cutting through the damp, freezing air of a basement that hasn't been opened in decades. Step by step, into the abyss. The smell of decay hits them first. And right there, in the center, they find a broken pedestal and wet blood on the wall declaring that whoever hears the curse will meet their end.
Down in the dark, the horrifying truth is finally revealed. We're looking at a deadly motive rooted exactly 100 years in the past. That's a century. This wasn't some random demonic presence that just showed up. This is a highly specific, deeply personal vendetta that had been marinating in the dark for an entire century, just waiting for someone to open that door. As a white, blurred figure emerged in the basement, it finally gave the investigators the context they were missing. The entity was Lolita, the original owner of the Haveli. She wasn't just a ghost, she was the victim of a horrific betrayal. Her husband wanted her wealth, so he entombed her alive, right where they stood. And those terrifying approaching footsteps that plagued the whole village? Actually, scratch that. It's more like they were the residual echoes of her dying struggles, her desperately kicking and thrashing in the dark a century ago. As the basement violently shook and dirt rained down from the ceiling, Lolita delivered her chilling ultimatum. My curse is eternal. Whoever hears it will meet their end. She wasn't looking for salvation, and she certainly wasn't looking for rescue. 100 years in the dark had twisted her trauma into pure, unadulterated rage. The investigators had finally found the truth, but the truth was actively trying to bury them exactly like Lolita had been buried.
Which brings us to our fifth and final part, an unending nightmare.
Having narrowly survived the collapsing Earth, Arvin relies on his policing instincts. If there's a threat, you neutralized its source entirely. So they used fire. They burned the entire Haveli to the ground to destroy the physical anchor of the curse, and they organized mass prayers. It was a highly logical, aggressive solution designed to completely cleanse the town. Destroy the crime scene, destroy the remains, and use spiritual cleansing to wash away the psychological trauma. And you know what? For a few days, the village breathed a collective sigh of relief. The heavy, oppressive atmosphere had seemingly lifted.
Now, we would absolutely love to think the case file is closed right here. The Haveli is reduced to ashes, Lolita's physical remains are gone. Peace returns, right? But trauma doesn't always burn away so easily. Rena is sitting quietly in her room studying when she suddenly feels the temperature drop. A freezing cold draft sweeps in, and from the dark corner of her room, the Ahat begins again, slowly, deliberately, approaching her. So what does this all mean? If the physical source is gone but the sound remains, can you ever truly escape the Ahat? It suggests the curse evolved past the Haveli, attaching itself directly to the fear of the people. It's an incredibly terrifying metaphor for trauma itself, honestly. Sometimes, even when you destroy the source of the pain, the echoes continue to stalk you in the quiet of the night. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive explainer. Stay curious, keep analyzing, and I'll catch you next time.